welcome back again to Fourth Down Talk, where every down counts as soon as your opinion. I'm back again with my boy Extra Crispy. We're going to be getting into the weekend matchup between the Vikings and the Lions, a battle for rivals, a battle for the division, a battle for the conference, a battle for playoff seeding. Everything's on the line. Big, small, you take it. We're going to talk about it all. Sit right back and enjoy the ride.
It's fourth down talk, get ready for the play. Football insights, we're here to say. From kickoff to the final whistle blow, we break it down just so you know. Fourth down talk, we're in the zone. Football, passion, heart, and soul. Tune in now, it's time to see the game we love, our destiny.
All right, welcome into Fourth Down Talk. We're going to sit here and talk about today's matchup against the Vikings and the Lions. Again, my boy Extra Crispy. Well, let me ask you first, Chris, how do you feel about this matchup? First, who do you have winning? Let's get straight to that, and why?
Man, who would have thought that the last game of the year, biggest game of the year, would be between the Vikings and the Lions? No one would have predicted that at the beginning of the season. But looking at both teams on paper coming into this game, while the Lions have been a fantastic story all year, one thing that's been reigning constant with them is injuries, injuries, injuries. And yes, they have squeaked out a bunch of wins, but they are now playing with a heavily depleted defense. And even last week, they did manage to win the game against the 49ers, but the Niners still put up 34 points on an offense that's been putting up 10 on average since after the bye. So I think the Vikings are going to surprise everyone, and I think they're going to win this game, and I don't think it's going to be crazy close. I think the Vikings pull away in the second half with their defense that just holds up a little bit stronger than the Lions' depleted defense. After going in a shootout in the first half, I say the Vikings win this game right now. I'd say something like 38-28.
So the Lions are going in very depleted on the offensive side. I'm sorry, on the defensive side, while the Vikings are coming in high powered with all of their offensive weapons. It is going to be interesting to see how the Lions try to combat against that Vikings offense. I can make a case that Amon-Ra St. Brown already set the plan that the Lions may lose this game, which I don't know. I feel like it's creating an excuse. You beat a lot of other teams in the season as it goes. Granted, the Vikings got the last win, but you never know. It's always the rematch that gets you. These divisional games are always closer than what most people may anticipate on being. I think it is going to be a good matchup. I personally do have the Vikings winning this, but I think I might have picked the Vikings to win the division. I don't know. But either all or overall, I do like how Sam Darnold has kind of just shown his detractors he ain't completely out of this game yet. Yeah, he had a bad stint in New York. We can't forget that. He was watching dead people. Yeah, he had a bad stint in Carolina as well as in the 49ers. But you know what? That didn't mean he was a bad player. He might have just been in a bad system. Who knows? But I'll tell you one thing we do know. Right now, he is quite possibly having the best career of his season. What do you make of Sam Darnold going forward? Should the Vikings even consider signing him, keeping him, or should they just like, okay, we like you, but we got JJ McCarthy. Thanks for the fun run, but we're going to go ahead and with our future.
You know, he is on a 1-year rental. And I could see why people would say, oh, nah, Sam, he was a good guy to get the bridge, the gap, but, he's not your guy going forward. But why not? Why isn't he your guy going forward? I mean, he has the veteran poise. He has the ability. He was taken third in his draft. Like, it's not like he was a bum or a scrub or anything. He was a first round pick, and he just needed to find a system or a coach that played the way he needed to, or at least believed in him, because New York was a dumpster fire. No one cares. No one thrives there. Even Aaron Rodgers isn't having a great season there, but that could be for different reasons. Um, Carolina, again, the last person to thrive in Carolina was Cam Newton, and that was a while back. It is kind of wild to think that 2 years ago, the Panthers had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold on their team, And now both of those guys are heading into the playoffs, and the Panthers are still not in the playoffs. Very interesting. But no, I am happy about Sam's resurgence. I am, officially happy he kind of survived the season and did not go on pumpkin watch, as everybody said. They had him ready to fail. And you know what? I don't agree that he should come back to the Niners. I do want to say that. I don't think he should. But I do hope it does get him a job somewhere else. And personally, I wouldn't be so ready to walk away from Sam if I was the Vikings. Because you don't know what J.J. McCarthy is going to do yet. He is coming off of an injury, even though he is a rookie still. So I would keep Sam. That's all I'm saying. I'd keep him.
No, I get you. I get you. And he is having a good year this year, but it's one of those things where it could be an anomaly. Look at Geno Smith. He did a fantastic job. He came in for the Seahawks. He started doing well, and then as we see, he's starting to become a little more just kind of a mediocre quarterback. And I think that's what's going to happen with Sam Darnold eventually. I think eventually he will come back down immediately to earth. Not the way some people think, where he's just going to be a complete trash, but yeah, I don't. You franchise tag him, keep him for the extra year, but that's about it. Because again, it's going to be a change in the schedule. It's going to be a harder schedule next year, especially if they win. I can't look at Sam Darnold and be like, oh, he's an answer. No, he's just a bridge to your next quarterback. And that's the part he can play. That's not a bad role to have in this league because it still keeps you employed. I don't think he is anything you want to look into long term past next year. That's why you have J.J. McCarthy. And if you don't like J.J. McCarthy, well, then you just don't need to be drafting. I'm kidding. But nonetheless,
I mean, it can happen. Bad opponents, bad drafting,
Yeah, and granted, he was picked like third in his draft, but I mean, yeah, I will never understand the dynamic of using where you're drafted to determine how good or bad you should be. When there have been so many cases of quarterbacks drafting high, doing bad, drafted low, and doing well. I feel like it's just team decisions, team setup, and coaching arrangement. All of those can be good or bad. Brady was a sixth round pick. Kurt Warner was never picked. These guys are both MVPs and Super Bowl winners. Jamarcus Russell was a first round pick. Ryan Leaf was a first round pick. These guys are considered busts. So it's like, I hate that draft pick conversation. I don't know. I want to know what fans think about it. I think it's an overblown conversation. Using that for an argument or against an argument is a little mute for me, but that's me. I'm kind of interested to see what fans think on that, because I really do think using a person's draft pick as any form of an argument is a mute conversation.
It's the whole Brock Purdy conversation. He's the last pick in the draft.
Yeah, it's a whole Baker Mayfield conversation. He was the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's a mute conversation, because it doesn't determine how good you're actually going to be. It just determines where a team needed you.
Well, next season, looking at the Vikings' upcoming opponents, it would be a good idea to hold on to Darnold for one more year. Don't sign him to any multi-year extension. Give him that one more year, because next year the schedule is harder. They play the AFC North, notoriously hard division, and they play the NFC East, which currently has two playoff teams in it. And we don't know what the Cowboys are going to be like next year. So that is at home, outside of their division. They have the Ravens and the Bengals and the Eagles and the Commanders. That is all playoff teams right there. Well, besides the Bengals. We don't know about them yet.
Well, maybe not, but they're still a pretty formidable force in their own respect. It's a pretty hard lineup to go up next year, and that's why it's going to be interesting to see how well or how good they're going to be.
And it'll be whoever finishes in the same spot as them in the NFC South. So if they win the division, it'll be probably the Buccaneers. But if they get second place, it'll be the Falcons, I believe. Then on the road, they have the Browns, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Steelers, whoever finishes in the same place in the AFC West. So if they win the division, that's the Chiefs. And then whoever finishes in the same spot in the NFC West. So if they win the division, that's the Rams. So if they win the
Okay.
division, that is not an easy schedule going into next year.
Yeah, that's why I would just hang on to him for one more season. But let's switch it to the other side of the ball and talk about the Detroit Lions. Since we talk about quarterbacks, let's talk about Jared Goff, who I made a case thinking that he could be a dark horse MVP candidate if you want to go with anyone that's not other popular choices, because he's putting on a very dynamic season himself. Some
He
people wrote
is.
him off leaving from the being traded from the Rams to the Detroit Lions. They were like, you'd rather have Matt Stafford and Jared Goff. Jared Goff, who didn't even throw a single touchdown in the only Super Bowl he's played in, has
Hmm.
looked lights out this year. 71 completion percentage. I think the highest QBR in the league as we speak. What do you make of Jared Goff's action this year?
I think he should have been an MVP candidate. I don't understand why he wasn't like involved in the conversation when he was putting up that historic run of like multiple games over 70% completion. He had that Amon-Ra St. Brown thing where he had 30 something passes before they dropped one or had an incompletion. They were blowing teams out of the water just over and over and over on offense, just every week. Their offensive unit has been one of the best just across the board. You have two great runners with Gibbs and Montgomery. They don't overuse them. They have multiple good receivers. They have a solid tight end. They have an offensive line that's ranked top in the league. I don't know why Jared Goff was not in the MVP conversation. I get why guys like Allen and Lamar were there. Arguably, Lamar should win it, but I think Goff was overlooked. And I think he's been overlooked since he's been on the line. Again, it's one of those weird situations where I think both teams benefited during the trade. Because the Rams immediately won the Super Bowl, and now the Lions are a playoff contending team that's arguably going to be the number one seed.
Yeah, most definitely. I gotta appreciate the Lions and how well they're doing this year, considering last season some would say Dan Campbell cost him the year based on his love of going forward on downs, in which he probably should kick or make other better decisions. But I don't know. I think. Do you think maybe this year he learns his lesson going into the playoffs? You think this year he does play it wisely, takes the field goal when it's necessary, go for the punt when necessary? Or do you think he's still going to go out there, grit, grind, bite kneecaps, and tear off shins?
I think he's playing a little bit more cautious, but he's also playing more smart when it comes to going for it because he knows, like even he said in that previous game this season, he went for it on fourth down because he knew the defense was kind of hurt and he wasn't going to risk them having to win the game when he can win it on offense. That's going to be the thing going into the playoffs. Can the Lions offense get it done without David Montgomery backing up Jameer Gibbs? Jameer Gibbs is now being the prominent main running back. He's done well the past couple games, but can you do this now against playoff teams? Because they haven't been here a lot before. Like
No,
this,
they
you're going to
haven't.
be playing a lot harder defenses and harder offenses. So it's going to be a lot of shootouts. And if there's anybody who knows them, it's Minnesota. And I think at this point in the season, that depleted defense is going to be what cost the Lions this game.
Interesting. And I can understand that from a standpoint that that defense is going to be a problem because they have a lot of injuries. And like I said, that Vikings offense has been a little ferocious. But another big question is, who is this game more important for? You got the Lions, never, to my knowledge, won the NFC North. You had the Vikings, who's at least been here
Never.
before, but this year you kind of question, do you even belong here? Well, they're showing that they do. This game is going to be in Detroit. All the marbles on the table. Who has the most to lose?
The Lions have the most to lose. They're the bigger story. The Vikings are just kind of coming up out of nowhere. The Lions have been building up since Dan Campbell got there. And then after last year, when they knocked on the door in the NFC title game, remember, they were up in that game 24-7. And they ended up losing because of questionable coaching decisions. So, yeah, they have more to lose here. A Lions loss would be more demoralizing right now than a Vikings loss because the Vikings, this is their first time here with a guy that they didn't expect to even have at quarterback this season. This is all kind of a surprise for them, and they're just riding the wave. So I
Mm.
think if you go by the vibes of the team, Lions loss I think would hurt them morale wise more. So I think if they lose this game, they're more likely to lose their first playoff game.
Interesting. No, yeah, I agree with that. The Lions do have a lot to lose. They put a lot on the table last year. They had a lot on the table. They lost it all. This is supposed to be their comeback from that. Their whole, oh, well, we kind of came short, but we're going to show you we belong here. This is supposed to be their Super Bowl run. But in the end of it, we'll see how it plays out for them. One other final thing in the end, the team that loses will become a wild card team based on this dynamic that you're 14-2, or in this case, probably 14-3 when the game is over. You're going to be a wild card game. Should
That's
the
crazy.
NFL reconsider their structure in the playoffs, or is it just because it's a one-off, not something to really worry about?
No, because it doesn't seem fair that a 14-win team is going to have to go on the road to play a team that's arguably won, what, 9 games, 10 games at most? And they're going to be on the road. It doesn't make sense. Like, it really should be a situation where, yeah, if you won your division, cool. But a 14-win team should be at home, and the 9 to 10-win team should be on the road. Like, that's just how it should be. But it's
Well,
not going to. So
that's what I'm saying. Should they? What are you saying? They should change it because it reminds me of the time in which the Saints had to go on the road to play against the Seahawks, and the Seahawks, who I think had a losing record that year. I
they
think it was
did.
seven
They were
and
7 and
nine.
9. They were.
And then, sure enough, they came in and completely demolished the Saints with arguably one of the greatest runs in NFL history. I love it so much. One of my favorite plays with Marshawn Lynch. But
It's arguable that play doesn't happen if they play that in New Orleans, though.
yeah, you're right about that. It might not have happened because that's the other key thing about the atmosphere being in that degree. The Lions atmosphere, since they're playing at home, could be a detriment to the Vikings. But I don't know. That's why I don't feel so bad for the Vikings to some degree. They're already, if this was the playoffs today, they're on the road already. So they go to Detroit. Let's say they lose this game. Well, you're still in the playoffs. Now you just got to continue your road trip down the road. And I don't know, man. History has shown that some teams on the road do really well, especially in the wild card position. You got a guy who's possibly going to the Hall of Fame named Eli, because you can't spell elite without ELI, it seems
You
like.
gotta lie.
He went on the road on all his playoff runs and won 2 Super Bowls.
You know that guy beat Tom Brady twice. That's
No, I can't.
crazy.
What's crazy is that he's going in the Hall of Fame for winning 2 football games. That's it.
No. Against Tom Brady, you got to throw that part in there.
See, that's the we're gonna have that discussion though, because I do want to talk about that. But
Eli?
yeah, because he's going in the Hall of Fame. I don't like that, but nonetheless. So you picked the Vikings to win. You picked the
Makes
Vikings, right?
sense.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
did.
Okay, not too bad. We'll see how it plays out.
Because
But you know what? Yeah, go ahead.
the Lions, like, I feel like if they don't win this game, it's just kind of starts the clock on their season. Because I don't think they're currently built to go on the road and win 3 games to get to the Super Bowl. Not in their current state, because they'd go on the road to play arguably the Buccaneers. That's going to be a shootout. Mike Evans, he's been playing really well. Baker Mayfield is playing some of the best football he's played in his career, throwing up the most touchdowns he's ever put up. He's not going out easily. So if they do win that game, then they're still going to probably be on the road to go to the next game, which will be against what? Who's the top 3 seeds? It'll be, well, depending on how the rest of it plays out. But I don't see a lot of the road teams winning during wild card weekend either.
Yeah, that's true. No, I can see that. It's going to be an interesting week to see how this all plays in the end. Like I said, I'm rooting for the Vikings. Sort of not necessarily rooting for Sam Darnold, but would like to see a happy ending for him, seeing how everyone's kind of took a dump on him in the beginning of the year. But you know what? Let us know in the comments who you like to see win, who you think will win, and how you think they're going to do in the playoffs. So either these teams Super Bowl bound, or we're just kind of going through the formalities before they get eliminated. Drop your opinion in the comments, and we'll see you next time on Fourth Down Talk, where every down counts.